Hi, welcome back to the garden. It's been a while, I know, I'm sorry, but we're gonna get back to our regularly scheduled programming this week. It's been incredibly busy and I'm gonna give you an update on what I've been up to, where I've been for the last month, 5 weeks maybe since I posted last. But first I wanna show you my ranunculus. If you have grown ranunculus, then you know just how temperamental it can be to get these flowering at the right time. And you can see there's quite a bit of weeds growing in this row, but there's also quite a few gorgeous flowers. You can also see that some of it is starting to go dormant. Not the majority, thank goodness. We've had a couple of not major heat waves, definitely warmer than it should have been. And I'm relieved that most of the crop has done well. And that is partially due to these woods because the sun sets in this direction. So we start to get some shade that hits the far end of these beds around 2 p.m. and then slowly makes their way up to this side. So there are more plants going dormant on this side, but as we walk over this way, it gets a little bit more lush. There's some cress coming up there, which I use, so I'm leaving that. Some gorgeous pink ones. There's some nice cream and yellows that I can see, but the foliage is a lot more lush on this side. And the top half of this row is also ranunculus. Then we have the stalk, which is just about starting to show its color. So these are budding up and should be ready to go within the next, I'd say 4 or 5 days to 2 weeks. There is so much happening in all of the gardens actually. I've been doing so much weeding the last little while. And I'm tempted to show you absolutely everything because I know you haven't been here for a while, but I'm gonna wait to do a bit more of a thorough garden tour, maybe garden update. So I'll leave that for another day. What I really want to show you next is my other half of the ranunculus. This was a big experiment. I had planted 24 ranunculus corms in each of these 6 bulb crates and put them inside my greenhouse right here. Now that meant that I could take it out during heat waves, put it back in when we were experiencing colder temperatures or, really bad winds, really intense rains. But they've been out here for about a week now permanently. And what I've noticed is we started to see blooms earlier than the crop in the ground. Unfortunately, just the last few days I've also started to see this. I think it is aborting some of its blooms, which is really too bad. And you can see that much more of it is starting to go dormant. So I think that there is probably a way to do this right. It's definitely a bit too warm for them. And the difference is that their root zones are heating up a lot quicker than they would in the ground. So it got them a bit of an earlier start. But what I should have done was start the corms about a month earlier than the ones that I planted directly into the ground. So I think that's where I went wrong, and then I would definitely have blooms probably as of 2 to 3 weeks ago. So I will definitely try this again next year. I'm not going to count it as a failure because it looks like I'll definitely get quite a few flowers out of here. And look at the height. This one is well over 2 feet tall. Good sized buds. The ones in the ground are definitely larger buds. So that's all really interesting. I moved the picnic table, so now I'm sitting on the ground. What I'm also really interested to find out is the difference in the corm size when these eventually do go dormant and then I dig them up because I like to keep them. I'm really interested to see the difference in the corm size between these ones planted in the crates versus the ones planted in the ground. And I'll show you a little bit of footage. I'll probably do a video just on this because I do have a lot of footage. So the plants planted in the bulb crates that were in the greenhouse, the foliage got much bigger, much more lush, way earlier. So theoretically, it should really have contributed to bulking up those corms and multiplying them more than the ones in the ground. Although the ones in the ground are obviously going to go a lot longer before they start to go dormant. So stay tuned for that. At the very end of ranunculus season, I'm going to do a video documenting all of that. So where have I been for the last, I don't know, at this point I think it's been 34, 35 days since I last filmed a video. There's a lot of things that I want to quickly go over today. Explain my absence a little bit. It wasn't on purpose, but there were a lot of things happening all at the same time. Most of you know I'm a full-time piano teacher. I have 46 students this year. We've had their final recital. I also learn all the music for the students of a voice teacher here in town, and I play for their final recital as well. That's finished. I also finished my Master Gardener's course. My last of the 4 Master Gardener's courses. I did the week-on summer school, in-person summer school last year, and this past Thursday, be a little over a week now. I went to the convention and banquet where I got my official certification. I got the course completion certificate from the university, and I got my actual certified master gardener certificate. They framed it and everything. It was lovely. The convention was incredibly interesting. I always learn a lot. This is only the second year I've gone, but I'm excited to go back and do that every year because I think continuing education is incredibly important, especially when you're sharing information on a platform like I am here. I really want to make sure that I get it right and give you the best information that I possibly can. Next up was the tulips. I did not film any videos while the tulips were blooming. I did mean to, but I took a ton of short clips. So I want to make a video pretty soon, within the next 2 weeks, showing you all of the varieties that were blooming. There were a couple of really amazing surprises out there, and because of a heat wave or two, again, some varieties, at least part of them, got left in the ground, and I'm gonna leave them exactly where they are, clean up around them a little bit, and see what I get next year. Now, I've also already placed my order for next year. It was somewhere in the 1,800 to 2,000 bulb range this past year. This year I've ordered 3,000. So that's going to be amazing. It was an amazing sales season for tulips. Definitely could have done a little bit more, but next season I will also have a cooler, which I knew when I was pulling them this year that I couldn't have any more than I did. I was sending them out every 2 or 3 days, which was working perfectly, but any more than that, and there would have been a lot going to waste just because I didn't have the room to store them. So, tulip video coming soon. It was a very successful season. And on another note, we haven't really had any critter damage since that last video. All of that netting that you saw around the Renunculus was mostly just to keep critters from walking through it. I know deer don't really eat Renunculus. If it was anything that they really loved, that probably wouldn't have been enough to deter them. But I've seen them come through and just pull Renunculus plants out of the ground and leave them. They did that to me last year with just a few. So I just needed to make it slightly annoying for them to get at them, and I knew that they would leave it alone. So that's probably going to come off soon, and I'm going to reuse that netting elsewhere. Let's see what else. So I've made no progress in fencing. I do have a budget set aside for fence. I just haven't pulled the trigger on the electric fencing because I know it's not going to look great. And really, production is pretty important here, but I still would love to put up some sort of fencing that looks good. I've been doing an awful lot of shrub planting around the property lines, hoping that when it grows up enough, that will serve as a bit of a fence. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but we'll see. But for now, there's been no progress on that, but we also haven't had any damage yet. I also know that anything really nice and decorative is going to be a lot more on the expensive side. But like I said, I do have a fence budget, and I'm probably just going to keep adding to it throughout the season, which is why I'm also picking up a second weekend farmers market. I do a small market on Wednesdays at the moment, a larger one on Sundays, and I've picked up a Saturday market that may even be larger than my Sunday market. We'll see. I've now just noticed that I forgot to put the wind muff on my microphone. There's not a whole lot of wind today, but hopefully the audio is okay, or I'm going to have to refilm this. It's been a while. Clearly I'm a bit rusty. So what else? I've got the space at the school is starting to be planted. The space at my neighbor's is being set up to be planted. I've got a greenhouse completely full of seedlings. Actually, let's just take a quick peek at that because I know you're going to want to see that. So this is how crammed we are for space in here. Each of these crates has 2 trays that I seeded yesterday, and obviously they can't stay stacked up like that. But tomorrow's big job is planting a whole bunch of this stuff, all of that, plus as much of this as possible so that these can be taken out and put on the shelving so that when they germinate, they don't get all squished. There are still a lot of tomatoes and peppers. A bunch have been given to the neighbors. I've got ageratum and celosia there on the bottom. There are a bunch of zinnias, more celosia, a whole bunch more zinnias way over there at the end. I also have gomphrena, marigolds, some herbs. There's a bunch of basil and more zinnias and marigolds up there, and a whole bunch of annuals. And hopefully that's all going to get planted within the next couple of days, or at least the majority of it. So I've been working really hard just trying to get all of the weeding done so that I can plant. It got a little bit out of control while I was finishing up with those music recitals and finishing the Master Gardener's course too. It was a little bit of a struggle towards the end, and I ignored the garden for a couple of weeks. But that's only because I got busy and didn't do a ton of coursework for about a month. So I only have myself to blame for that. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of shots of the garden just to show you what is blooming right now. I'm going to try to get this out to you within the next couple of days. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Within a week this time, I promise.